One of the biggest catch-22s in life is that the more structure, stability, routine, and predictability has in life, the faster that time tends to fly by. And success requires all the above: structure, routine, stability, and predictability. But time doesn't fly faster than when one is in this mode. And having just been through a month of fasting and the month of Ramadan, here we're going to discuss that in more detail. Ramadan 2025 coming at you. Welcome back to another episode of Just Some Perspective podcast. I'm your host, Mash Rahman. Eid Mubarak and Ramadan Mubarak to all my fellow Muslims around the world, brothers and sisters, and the such. I hope you all had a wonderful month of fasting and prayer and getting close to your faith and closer to God. And just having completed, I fully understand everyone's sacrifice and feelings and determination and so forth. Grateful to have accomplished and completed another month, and I feel like I've gotten a lot closer to my deen as well. And we'll get into that in more detail. This month flew by. As I mentioned, this month, and in particular, having routine and stability, which is what this month is about. The time doesn't fly faster than that. Okay, I can tell you for sure. And the month flew by. 30 days just gone like that, like literally a snap, right? And here we are. April just started, and it's officially 25% of 2025 is done. Okay, so literally the first quarter of the year is finished. So we're entering Q2 now. So welcome to Q2. So as I mentioned, the perception of time increases as you repeat habits and as you repeat routines in your life, which is a catch-22 because you cannot be successful without habits and routines, but also life and time doesn't fly faster with habits and routines. It's not fair. It's not necessarily a good feeling. However, one doesn't come without the other, right? Everyone has to wake up and go to bed at a certain time every day, especially if you have revolve around work or business or something, right? Everyone needs to eat certain amount of times a day and certain amount of calories, right? So forth. And I'm going to break down my reflections of Ramadan 2025 here on this episode, right? So, first is they say it does take 30 days to make or break a habit. And that makes perfect sense why the month of Ramadan is literally a full month. The goal is to establish these habits, right, for a Muslim to become a better version of themselves, right? And what does that mean? That entails waking up every day, okay, early, way before the sunrise. That's not comfortable. It's not fun necessarily. Do people do it and need to do it? Yes. Do we see influencers and movie stars and athletes do that for them to accomplish their goals and become better version of themselves? Yes. So does success require essentially the right sleeping habits and waking up at a certain time to start your day and begin in a certain mindset with a certain vision and goals in mind? Yes. That's precisely what the month of Ramadan is about. So every morning we're required to wake up super early. And that means for me, I have multiple alarm clocks in order for me to get up on time, right? And one hack, which I tried to mention on a previous episode, is I have, number one, multiple alarm clocks, and I have multiple alarms, right? I have a physical alarm clock, which is a sunrise alarm clock that mimics the sunrise as the alarm goes off. So you're forced to see bright light in your eyes as the alarm goes off, which only gets your eyes attracted to more light, which means it's stimulating like the waking up cycle. And also I have phone alarms, which is double annoyance, which is only having to make me get up faster. right? And that's one quick hack. But every day, this is an everyday occurrence during the month of Ramadan, okay? And now sometimes you're too tired to get up, you still get up, right? Now, if you can make it without actually having to eat anything, power to you. I cannot do that. I must consume food of some magnitude, some sufficient level. For me, especially like 3 eggs and toast and protein shake and coffee. That's really necessarily what I consume, and my body typically needs that. So, like I said, 30 days to make or break any habit, right? So, if you do that for 30 days, then technically waking up early every day should become easier, assuming your sleep cycle is predictable and assuming you're going to bed at the same time, right? That doesn't mean you can go to sleep at 1 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever, stay up all night watching Netflix or playing video games, and you can still wake up at 6 with no issue. No, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is sleep means going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time, which leads me to my next point. As an adult over 35, I can tell you without a sheer doubt that getting sufficient sleep is the most important thing to function. Okay? I can tell you as a working professional, and waking up every single morning, I did not miss a single morning. I swear, I promise, that enough sleep is super important and the most important thing as an adult, the older you get, especially 35 and up, right? And sufficient sleep, I mean minimum 6 hours, 6 to 7 hours, right? Now, that is much harder to do in this month of Ramadan, especially if you're going to the masjid and praying in person for 1 to 2 hours a night, which is called Tarawih prayers, which is highly recommended and I'd say very important for a Muslim who's taking their Ramadan seriously, right? So if you're serious about pushing yourself, which is highly recommended and highly preached to Muslims around the world who are fasting, to get closer to their deen and for their prayers to be potentially heard and potentially for God to potentially forgive and accept prayers and fasting, it is highly, highly recommended to actually participate in nightly prayers that are hosted in the masjid in person. It could take a minimum of 1 hour, which is what we call 8 rakas prayer. If you're a Muslim, you already are familiar with this. But minimum of 1 hour of prayer in the masjid is, I would say, the bare minimum for most Muslims who are practicing and observing in the month of Ramadan, right? Just bare minimum. Now that means if you go to the masjid between 9 and 10, right? You finish prayer, you come back, it takes 10 minutes. If you're lucky, you live 10 minutes away. It takes 10 minutes there and back. That's 20 minutes plus an hour. So that's an hour and a half right there, right? So you get back home, it's around 10:30, right? And you already finished your food. You already broke your fast, right? Which is at sunset. And if you were to go to bed exactly at 10:30, then if you have to wake up at 5:30, that's over 6 hours of sleep. Technically, you would have gotten sufficient sleep, okay, if that was your schedule. Now, if you stayed up another half an hour watching Netflix, which I'll be honest, I am guilty of doing because I just need my brain to relax just for a little bit after a whole day of fasting, prayers, and work and family stuff. Okay, I will admit, and that's nothing wrong. However, technically by doing so, your sleep is affected because it's cutting into your sleeping time. And of course, if for those of you who really take your health seriously and a big fan of the health podcasts such as the Huberman Lab podcast, which I've discussed many times on this channel, it is said that taking in blue light, which is light emitted from your screens and any screen, laptop or TV, blue light before bed does have a reverse effect and does tend to mess with your sleep cycle and schedule, right? So anyway, but yes, ideally speaking, let's say you pray for an hour, you come back, it's 10:30, you go straight to bed, and if you have children or you have a spouse and everyone's done for the evening and you go to sleep, you would technically get sufficient sleep if you have to wake up at 5, because that's around roughly 6 hours minimum, right? Now, if you're like me and you really push yourself in the masjid to go beyond that and go for 2 hours of prayer, which is the maximum, by the way, 2 hours of in-person prayer in the masjid is the maximum, okay? For Tarawih prayers, which is a 20 rakat plus 3 rakat witr for the Muslims watching. That means you're literally back home by if at the earliest 11:15, 11:10, 11:15, depending on how far away your masjid is, right? So assuming that's the case, and then you go to bed at like 11:30, right? But your alarm is set for 5:30. Now you're talking about 5 hours or less of sleep time, right? Um, I mean, technically speaking, 11:30 to 5:30 is 6 hours, but that's that that's 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep. And technically speaking, your alarm would probably be going off at 5 for you to like get up at 5:30. I'm talking to the people who snooze their alarm clocks, okay, like most people, like myself. If any of you can actually get up exactly when your alarm gets off, you have a superpower that I would love to have myself without snoozing once, or you're a psychopath. Just kidding. But I'm talking to people who have to snooze their alarms and actually wake up after a couple of times of actually hitting the snooze button and then get up. So you're setting your alarm clock half an hour even before you intend to get up. That's what I'm talking to, right? So assuming that's the case, yes, you go to bed 11:30, right, after 2 hours of prayer, and then your alarm set for 5. Then if you potentially get up at 5:30, that is less than 6 hours. That's luckily roughly 5.5 hours if you're lucky of uninterrupted sleep. And that's not to say that if you have babies or pets or something, a storm outside that wakes you up, that's absolutely not touching on the fact that something could interrupt your sleep in the middle of the night, right? So sleep is even more important as an adult than it ever was when you're young and growing up. 100%. And so now if you're like me and after you finish your suhoor, your breakfast, you begin fasting, you recite your morning prayers and such. Now I basically have to begin work right away because we have early morning meetings starting from like as early as 7:30 for me. So I don't have a chance to just quick nap after that. I have to immediately log in and get to work. Some of you may be fortunate to have an hour or so to take a quick nap, and I hope, by all means, I would recommend that, right? If you can get away with that. Now, for me, yeah, starting my workday with a little bit less amount of sleep and quick intake of food and so forth, and a little bit less caffeine, I am feeling more groggy. Okay, I might have a bit of a headache, and I am definitely feeling under rested probably, and so I have to give whatever I can give, and it's like your brain is not fully functioning, right? It's technically, if it's not fully rested, it's less rested brain is more on like a survival mode, right? Because it didn't receive its proper amount of rest, so therefore it probably cannot give its 100% capacity towards any cognitive or such task. Okay, so that's how I found it myself in the mornings after I wake up, but not to complain, just kind of my observation. Now, that being said, what are you supposed to do when your sleep routine is interrupted and you can't get your full whatever your sleep schedule is, 6 to 7 hours. Or if you get 8 hours, God bless you. I cannot anymore, or these days. But if you can get more than 6 to 7 hours, and if that is interrupted, right, what is your option? Is taking a nap, right? That means you have to take a nap. And I certainly found myself having to take a nap as soon as my meetings were done and I have a quick break, a couple hours, immediately shut off. If I have to do something at home or walk the dog, I quickly get it done and turn my phone on, do not disturb, quickly take a nap. Without this nap, okay, middle of the day for an hour, or if I'm lucky, hour and a half, my brain cannot be at a 100% cognition. It cannot do that because it's already operating on survival mode, right? Because it's not fully rested. And most people don't wake up off of 5 hours of sleep typically, right? Now, some people have crazy schedules and some people can manage. Okay, if you're one of those, God bless you. I'm talking to the majority of people who can't really function with less than 6.5 hours of sleep, right? And I'm one of them. So when your sleep routine is disrupted, which will happen in this month of Ramadan for most of us, naps are super important. You have to take naps. You are fasting. You cannot, your energy level, you're not consuming as much energy because of lack of food intake and caffeine intake, right, throughout the day. So you have to make up for that by taking a nap. And it could be 30 minutes, it could be 1 hour, but anything's better than zero. And then your energy level will go up because your brain is more rested, right? And therefore your cognition and your fatigue level should go down, and you should be able to carry on the rest of your day without feeling as much effects of the fatigue and the tiredness from the lack of sleep, right? So that's the importance of sleep there. The next thing is the importance of delayed gratification. Okay? If you follow any person of massive success on social media or on YouTube, wherever, I'm pretty sure everyone is going to mention the importance of delayed gratification at least once, or if not more than once. Okay? To be successful in life, one must have delayed gratification. There's just no way around it, right? Ramadan is the greatest example for a believer of the importance of delayed gratification. Because what are you doing? You are giving up food for over 12 hours a day. You're giving up water for over 12 hours a day. And if you're married or beyond, you're definitely giving up close, intimate connection with your partner for the whole daytime hours too. Okay? Why are you doing that? That delayed gratification is supposed to win spiritual and cleanse yourself and gain in the eyes of your Lord and your of God, basically, right? So that's the important part of delayed gratification. God said, I commanded those before you, and I command you of those who are healthy and able and not nursing and pregnant and so forth. Obviously, if you're any of the above, then you are not required to actually fast. But if you're not, you are required to fast. But therefore, God mentioned, for those of you who do fulfill your fasting obligations, you will be rewarded in this life and the next. Okay? That's the whole purpose. That is delayed gratification in a nutshell. You're delaying your happiness and your amount of your desires of eating, and your physical desires, and you're just giving up food, right? For a greater reward in the future. And that reward could be in your physical life, it could be in your family life, right? It could be financially, but the very most important for a believer of Islam is in the hereafter. Okay? No, I'm not trying to get too morbid. Yes, is life finite? Yes. Are we going to live forever? No. And as a believer, do we believe in heaven and forgiveness and angels? Yes. That's the main purpose of the fasting. And delayed gratification, this is capturing that in a nutshell. Okay. If you want to build a business, if you want to focus on your health, you have to give up something. You have to give up donuts and pizzas and eating a ton of carbs and whatever, right? If you want to build a business, you have to dedicate all your time and energy towards an idea, okay, and see productivity. Myself, I have to invest time into my goals, which is this channel as well. And if I don't, I'm not going to see any success. Delayed gratification in a nutshell. Okay, very important for success in this life or the next. There is no victory without sacrifice, and just like in Ramadan, you're sacrificing your time, you're sacrificing your mental state, you're sacrificing your hunger, your desires, your potential anxiety, your emotional state, all the above, but with the belief that this sacrifice is going towards the most noble cause, to making to fulfilling my obligation to my Lord, whom is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by doing so, I'll myself and hopefully my family will be rewarded in this life and the next. Sacrifice is key, and Ramadan is a great example. So, yeah. So we mentioned all the above. For Muslims, you already know that, right? You already the whole point of being Muslim, believe in God, believe in angels, believe in heaven and hell, believe in good deeds and bad deeds, and sin and being a good person and good deeds. All of that. Sacrifice is tied to this. Delay of gratification is tied to this. And this is Ramadan in a nutshell, right? So, now, speaking of pushing oneself, right? Most people are not going to push themselves to their perceived limits, and certainly not beyond that, right? And the best example was during late night prayers for Tarawih, which I'm happy to say I attended at least half the month or beyond. Actually, at least 20 days, 20 plus days of the month out of 30. And I mean the full 2 hours time too. So, by the time you reach 1 hour, okay, by that time, 90% of the congregation is done. They're leaving, because that is kind of the minimum, like standard, the minimum acceptance of how long one should pray the late night prayers. Okay, that's called the first 8 rakat for the fellow Muslims. But by the time after that, guess what? The last 10% of people there, it's much quieter. It's much more peaceful. Okay, it's just you, your brothers and sisters next to you. There's no other sound. There's no kids screaming or phones. Hopefully, no phones going off, which happens. And it's just the beautiful voice of the Quran being recited by a holy scholar of Islam. Okay, by memory, by the way, which is amazing feat. And it is the most peaceful time by far in the masjid. When the masjid is full, when it's the most capacity, okay, that's the 90%, 80%, right? The absolute mandatory prayers and the most important prayers. After that then you're just pushing yourself to reach another level. That's when you have the remaining 10 to 20%. Ironically, if you can push through that, you'll find the more peace, because there's less noise, there's less headache, there's less typically less chaos with less children and such. And it's okay. Obviously, children tend to be chaotic by nature. That is what it is. That's fine. But when you can find that peace, it's way easier to focus and have your mind towards that. So yeah, I highly recommend one to push themselves, and I can say I'm happy to do so at least more 15 to 20 times this past month. So that being said, both the imam and I agree myself that one shouldn't see themselves as superior just for having completed 2 hours of extra prayers in the masjid every night or most nights of Ramadan. Okay, I'm not superior to any fellow Muslim, and anyone who prays less is not inferior, or anyone who prays more is not superior. Okay. Um, the Imam themselves said, uh, no one is better than another person. No ethnicity. No. Um, an Arab is not better than a Pakistani. Okay, a Saudi is not better than a Bengali. No, the only difference in the eyes of the Lord is your individual taqwa, your individual faith, and basically how much you have done in your faith, how much prayers, how much good deeds, good person, and only Allah knows that answer. Okay, that's the only difference. And but yeah, other than that, uh, participating in general, minimum, I'd say is a million times better than not participating. Okay, if you simply show up to the masjid for the evening prayer, and I'll be honest, there are times where I really didn't feel like going, but that is sacrifice. That is what success means. You're doing something you not don't necessarily feel like doing, but you do it anyway because you know the end result will be much greater than your feeling of comfort or your feeling of that time and place, right? So same thing in Ramadan. Um, so in terms of actual fasting, which is no food, drink the entire day for from sun up to sundown, honestly, it's mostly mental. I don't think it's really physical. It's mostly mental. Uh, for non-Muslims and people who don't necessarily fast, um, it sounds impossible because you've lived your whole life of breakfast, lunch, and dinner and snacks or whatever without any hesitation, right? So you couldn't see yourself like giving up one or two or more meals a day because it seems unfathomable because you've never done it. It just because something seems very difficult doesn't mean it's not achievable if you simply make it a habit or make a routine of yourself doing that. That is what Ramadan teaches us, right? And so it's mostly mental. And I'll be honest, I don't feel hunger. I feel fatigue. I feel caffeine withdrawal for sure. And those of you who are fellow caffeine enthusiasts like myself, that is the hardest thing, is my sleep. I'm not getting caffeine and I'm under rested. I That is a struggle because it's struggle to stay awake, okay, during the day. And I have work to do. You have things to do. So that is my biggest challenge during the month of Ramadan that I could find, right? Um, and so fasting is mostly a mental exercise. I would say you nobody has nobody has gotten a heart attack through fasting. Do you see my point? Nobody has dropped down, I would say, for fasting. I'm not saying like complete hunger and starvation. I'm not saying starvation. I'm saying fasting, just a certain period of time. It's never, I don't think it's really actually killed anyone. Okay. If anything, it's actually improved the health of most people. In fact, there's a lot of new medical studies that are showing the benefits of fasting. And um, just look, if you simply were to look up the benefits of fasting, you'll find tons of resources and videos on YouTube and post about this. But latest science is showing that just 3 days of fasting, and really like this is really hardcore of water fast and coffee fast like this, or just liquid fast, I should say. The body cells start to eat itself. It starts to eat away at bad toxins or bad cells in your body because it has to feast on something. It doesn't have food. It doesn't have solid food to eat off. It has to go within, which means it has to burn your fat cells. It has to burn damaged cells in your liver and your kidneys. It has to do so. So it's literally cleansing your body from within just by fasting and eliminating food for a certain amount of time, right? I saw a report. I saw a post about cancer cells. Even cancer cells were found removed and from the body just from a couple of days of fasting. So, um, so that alone should show that the benefits of fasting for someone. I highly recommend for someone who's really taking their health seriously, especially if you're really serious about losing a lot of pounds. Um, I highly recommend looking at the fasting, because I've heard people, just by eliminating 1 or 2 meals a day for a few months, you can drop 10, 20, 30 pounds, and you don't even have to exercise hard. Just bare minimum walking, nothing hard. And just by reducing the amount of caloric intake, which is what happens when you reduce the amount of meals a day, just by that you will for sure lose weight, because you're in a caloric deficit. Okay, decreasing calories, right, and increasing how much you burn calories, that's the caloric deficit. Most people don't get that because their caloric intake doesn't decrease during Ramadan or fasting, because they tend to overeat or whatever after the fasting period is over. But if someone can do so, you will see the results, basically when you measure yourself or in the gym or whatever. Okay, so increased metabolism, increased energy level, increased fat loss. These are many reports and medical videos all show the same thing. So huge benefits of fasting. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up here. Yeah, so locking in, right? I think we all heard this term by now. Lock in. Ramadan was locked. I was locked in Ramadan. Every single morning I woke up, I ate something. Even if I had 15 minutes to eat, I ate something. Okay, and then I did not one time break my fast. Not once during the day. Not once. And prayers 5 times a day. I'm pretty sure every single day I managed to do so. There might have been a day or two I might have just fell asleep early. It's possible, yes. However, I made it a habit to not miss my prayers every day. Okay, praying in the masjid, that became a habit for me too. And especially when I have my own family going, I have to go. It's motivation. That's being locked in, right? And I have work every day. And by the way, I have to do other side project, and I had to work on side things for myself or my family, and that took a toll emotionally too. Okay, because it's not just a quick stop, one stop shop or anything. It's just an everyday working towards the goal or something, and it just takes a toll on you, especially when you have a lot to deal with and you're on low energy and so forth. But it doesn't matter. That is locking in, and it's really important for one to stay committed to their goals. You have to lock in, you have to focus, and removing distractions is key. And that's the whole purpose of Ramadan, is technically to remove your distractions, right? Starve your distractions and feed your focus. Ramadan 2025. For those of you who made it all month fasting, congratulations. You locked in, and just like myself, and that's a successful month. You can look back and say, I accomplished this. I met my goals. I accomplished my target, right? That's the definition of locking in, and I'm grateful. I feel very blessed to do so. I feel very thankful. I feel accomplished of having locked in and pushing myself basically to my limits with everything, especially juggling work and home and family stuff and prayer and fasting and even walking the dog and some fitness and learning new things. It's just crazy, but that's what locking in takes. That's what success takes, and I'm happy to say I did so. So last thing is, okay, for those of you who want to give fasting a shot but not ready to like jump in to hardcore, just straight up hardcore fasting like we did in Ramadan, I recommend intermittent fasting. Okay, what is intermittent fasting? That is only dedicating a certain amount of time of the 24 hours of the day, only dedicating a certain amount of time, which most people would do about 12 to 16 hours. Okay, that time frame of total fasting, no food, but I would say water's fine, and black coffee is acceptable, or tea. That's acceptable, okay, in this time frame. And that also includes the time you sleep too, by the way, right? When you're sleeping, you are fasting. you cannot consume, God willing, if you're sleeping at the same time, right? Typically you're not eating right now. I'm not talking about people in the hospital who have to rely on tubes. I'm not saying that. Yes, God bless them. They have to be hooked up and receive nutrients that way, right? But the regular person who's healthy, hopefully, and every time you sleep, you are fasting. Why? That is why it's called breakfast. Break fast. That's why it's called that, okay? Because you're literally breaking the fast of you not eating between when you went to bed and when you woke up, right? So if you sleep for 6 hours, right? Let's just say you sleep for 8 hours, okay? Then if you get up at 6 a.m., let's just say, and you only have water and coffee, black coffee, then what? You fast till 12 p.m., no food at all, and then you break your fast with something nice and healthy with high nutrient density, which is lean meats, vegetables, fruits, maybe some light carbs. That is intermittent fasting, right? And then if you have a window, or it doesn't have to be 12, it could be 2, whatever, 12 to 6, 2 to 8. That's a window, okay? If you eat within that window and then don't eat the rest of the time outside of the window, that is intermittent fasting, and most people will end up losing a lot of weight, and ideally should have more energy and better outputs by following this said intermittent fasting window. Okay. I myself follow intermittent fasting a little bit. I only have water and coffee and maybe a protein shake in the morning. I don't even have too much big lunches anymore. I opt for a healthy snack like apples, avocados. If I have any chicken available, a light piece of chicken or something, I'll have that. That's it, and apples and fruits throughout the day. And I do consume a couple cups of coffee. So that's how I go through intermittent fasting. And then when I get to my dinner time, my outside of my window, then I can kind of consume a nice normal big meal full of protein, healthy protein, hopefully some vegetables and so forth. And I get the rest of my caloric intake for the day. So that's what I recommend for those who want to consider fasting as a new habit, or maybe give it a shot, see how it feels, and see if that could help you accomplish your goals, weight loss, or whatever they may be. So with that, those are some of my reflections of Ramadan 2025. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like this episode, please hit the like button, share, subscribe for more. I am going to be more focused on getting more episodes out here on a more regular basis. And that is a new goal and goal for me, and habit that I'm also working on building. So there you go. It all ties together. But with that, signing off. Again, this is Mosh with the Just Some Perspective podcast. Remember, at the end of the day, it's just a little perspective. Hope you enjoyed. Until next time.